Hello there, I played some Company of Heroes 2, let me tell you how it went. We're starting off this campaign in the tutorial, miraculously. I actually played the tutorial. Normally I wouldn't bother talking about it, but I immediately started thinking something was strange when I was playing the tutorial to this game. I had played Company of Heroes 1 before, so I had some idea of what to expect. In fact, this game, as far as I remember, is pretty much exactly the same as Company of Heroes 1. Which is a bit of a shame really, considering they did come out quite a long time apart. Anyway, so it was me sitting here watching these two lines of guys shooting each other when I realised this game wasn't at all what I expected. I kind of expected something much more realistic and, well, to be more specific, what I expected was to be able to zoom the camera out. That's kind of the thing that was on my mind throughout my entire time playing this game, is that it's very zoomed in, and I found that inconvenient. Anyway, as you can see, our two lines of guys shoot at each other for a while. Eventually their line gets taken out, and that's that. So yes, I was a little bit surprised to see that it was basically just Company of Heroes 1. Again, it's something like Dawn of War 2 as well, made in the same engine. So I kind of knew what I was doing right off the bat. The tutorial's a little bit superfluous. The other thing that struck me was how invincible soldiers are in this game, as demonstrated just there. We just threw a bundle of 7 grenades at the feet of a bunch of guys. One of them died, the rest didn't even flinch. So yes, it's a very arcade-ish title as it turns out, which I wasn't really a fan of. I also didn't remember Company of Heroes 1 being like this, but then again that was like 15 years ago, so I'm pretty sure I just don't really remember it at all. Here we are coming up on the flank of an enemy squad and just absolutely machine gunning them, and again I was like, why aren't they reacting to this? It might just be because it's the tutorial. I just thought it was strange how we can stand in front of them and the soldiers don't react. So it is a simpler game than I expected. That's the whole point of me ranting about this tutorial, I suppose. All we have to do is move our squad of a couple of relatively invincible guys up through a bunch of Soviet troops. I think we might be invincible, I couldn't quite tell. We got shot a fair few times and nothing happened, but the enemy have to get shot a fair few times before something happens to them as well. It's just that sort of game. Here was a particularly good firefight where the two sides lined up on either side of a pile of explosive barrels. The barrels do explode during the fight. This has much less of an effect than you might expect. But then with a bit more point-blank range shooting with this anti-tank rifle, we're finally able to bring down a Soviet infantryman. So clearly our weapons aren't that powerful, or maybe everybody's just very strong. I think that's the real explanation. To win the tutorial, we end up just having to defend this point against a bunch of stuff. Easy enough because we just stand there and shoot. Some artillery comes out of nowhere and blows up half their stuff, and that'll be that. Now you get the slightly wrong impression from playing the tutorial because it makes you play as the Germans, but the game is actually about playing as the Soviets, so we've had our little experience there. We'll be back to the Soviets soon enough. After that tutorial I was like, right, we need some mods. I went to search for Realism in the Steam Workshop. The first result for Realism is something with a picture of an anime girl, so you know you're getting a realistic experience there. But the long story short with mods is that none of them work. For some reason in this game all of the mods are only for skirmish mode and multiplayer mode. The main game doesn't have any mods, they just don't work with it for some reason, and that's a big disappointment. I almost didn't play the game because of that, but then I thought, well, I've installed it, I'll just make a commentary on it anyway and rant about stuff, as I've been doing thus far. So when we begin the game proper, we get a bit of a story cutscene. The game is framed as a flashback of a guy in a gulag who is the player character essentially. We see an image of a train and then the title card comes up. I thought that was a bit strange because this cutscene, a guy in a gulag and then a train, gives you no impression about what the game's like at all, so it's a strange place to put the title card. I'm just going to complain about everything. Anyway, basically our guy here is talking to his old commanding officer. I'm pretty sure our guy is in the gulag for disobeying orders, so that's good. Maybe we don't have to do what the game tells us to do later on. I think the whole angle it's going for is that my guy is less about sending conscripts in to die, but our commanding officer loves sending the conscripts in to die, and that's going to cause a bit of a kerfuffle between us. So we now cut to Stalingrad, and of course because it's Stalingrad they're just going to reproduce all of the shots from the film Enemy at the Gates. So we start with the guy with no weapon running in, that classic scene, and then eventually we start playing the game. This first level is kind of like an extension of the tutorial, so there's not going to be too much for us to do. As it started, I was zooming in close, trying to see if the realism mods I had installed were doing anything, and this was me confirming essentially that they don't. People in the comments on one of my community posts also confirmed that they just don't work in campaign, which is a shame. Apparently they do work in the campaign of the original Company of Heroes, which made me want to play that more, which I might do at some point. But for now, we're going to support this T-34 tank. Well, we don't support it very well because it blows up very soon. But it doesn't matter because our shock troops are relatively invincible. The game has been kind and not given us a bunch of conscripts. We've got some real guys for this Stalingrad experience, and they can take a fair few bullets. So we're kind of just running up and shooting people at point blank range with submachine guns. That works well enough. But then there is a heavy machine gun in our path of advance. The radio guy mentions that it's there. The conscripts are like, ooh, this seems interesting, and they jump over the wall, getting mown down en masse. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't even die in normal gameplay. They've just been scripted to have their models die. And then the guy's like, oh, by the way, avoid the kill zone. So that second part of the order, much more important than the first part, if only they'd said it earlier. Now we have a strategic choice to make. We can take path A, which the conscripts did, and get shot. Or there's path B, where the heavy machine gun isn't, and by picking the correct choice, you find yourself over here, to the side of the heavy machine gun, and you can throw a grenade in. The good news is that this grenade proves to be much more effective than the one we used in the tutorial. It kills the enemy. We don't even need to finish off the infantry, because they just get out of there. That's handy. It was at this point I noticed I'd actually lost a guy. I was beginning to suspect that my troops were going to be invincible in this mission, like in the tutorial, since we don't have any buildings we can use to recruit new troops. Although we actually can recruit new troops, I just haven't discovered how to do it yet. Anyway, we keep moving up. There's another German line just behind that one we just took, and now we need to go and find some artillery to blow up. The grenades proved to be effective here as we threw them over a building, and the explosion of the grenade also blew up a munitions canister or something, killing all of the nearby enemies. Handy stuff. We're being given a bit of a side mission here, where there's a building off to the left surrounded by enemies, and we can rescue some civilians from the inside. This proves to be quite easy because all of the enemies surrounding it are just firing at the building. So we can kind of just run in and start killing them without them paying us too much attention, doing some cheeky dashes out of cover to drop grenades on the enemy there, then you quickly run back before they shoot you. There's the howitzer we're supposed to be taking down for our main objective. Well, there's two of them actually, on the left and right. I noticed one of my squads actually died while I wasn't looking at it. Had to strategically decide to put a new squad down, not where the old one was, so it didn't die again. I correctly made that decision, which is by no means a guarantee. So yes, we kind of have this reusable ability towards the bottom left there that brings up more troops for us. So we do have an unlimited supply of troops to use, they just have a bit of a cooldown for coming back. As you can see, we quickly clear out that area around the building. That side objective is done. Now we need to move up and take out the other howitzer. Here's another cheeky grenade throw move. You can take enough bullets that sneaking around a corner and getting shot a few times isn't a big deal, but doing so usually allows you to just drop a grenade in on a situation, which can clear things out. Like right here as well. Just charge up to point blank range, grenade everything. You'll get shot a bunch of times, but your guys don't mind. The grenades, as mentioned, appear to be doing a lot more damage than in the tutorial, so clearing out enemy positions becomes easy. It does use resources actually to throw grenades, so you can't spam them infinitely. For now we've got a bit of an issue because a tank shows up, and all of our troops are anti-infantry troops that can't do anything against tanks. So we just have to hide. Eventually the tank drives away, so that's fine, good of them to do that for us. But we need to find a way to take it out, basically. At some point, someone on the radio mentions that they've spotted an enemy anti-tank gun towards the back. So we need to go around to the left and find it, and then use it against the tank. That's easy enough, so I'm skipping over this part. I've got the gun now, they're on the right. The main challenge is actually this bank of sandbags. Sandbags are a curious terrain feature in that they're impassable unless you right-click on them, in which case they are passable. So you can kind of manually order your guys to climb over them, but they won't climb over them as a route to go somewhere. This proves to be an interestingly designed mechanic, which I totally don't like. I'll rant about it more in a second. Basically, we grab the anti-tank gun, shoot the tank in the back and it explodes, and another area of Stalingrad is cleared out, but there's a bit more yet to do. The guys in front of us are trying to retreat, and because somebody's watched enemy at the gates, now we have the blocking detachment scene where we're going to cut down our own men. Very effective. I think that guy doing the shouting is the guy who's interviewing us in the present day Gulag scene. So he's doing his good work, getting rid of those precious conscripts. Luckily we've got some more to throw out, and that's going to be the end of their lives, I imagine. Luckily we can go back to our shock troop battalion and just not run straight at the enemy. I do get my revenge on this guy because he's actually here on the map, and we can stick the anti-tank gun through him. I'm sure that does him a world of good. I'm trying to use the anti-tank gun to sneak up on the enemy because it has slightly longer range than the enemy's machine guns. We can kind of snipe at its maximum range and try to take out the enemy from the front. This isn't particularly effective, but we can do some actual stuff with the infantry on the flanks. So I need to go around the left, and the problem with going around on the left is that there's a tiny wall in the way, and that wall shares the same property as the sandbags, where it is possible. Like right here, I'm ordering my men to go forwards, but they won't do it because I didn't click on the wall. They start running in front of the enemy's light machine gun position. We have to run back, right click on the wall to make them climb over it, then go back once they're done and give an order to walk forwards. To me that seems completely pointless. If it's effectively possible, why not just walk over it to begin with? The anti-tank gun's in a weird position. There are tons of allied bodies in front and behind it, but somehow the anti-tank gun itself is fine, so they're in the sweet spot, better not move. Looks like our troops have traversed the wall. A quick grenade clears out the route forwards, and essentially we can outflank the enemy's main defensive positions soon enough. There's one more place to take just behind that position. It was defended by another tank, but the anti-tank guns can deal with that. This guy has decided to get out of cover and get shot by the tank. Your guys do kind of decide where to stand. You only tell the units vaguely where to go. Sometimes they'll decide to stand in awkward positions, which is a shame. I'm guessing with true micro, you could constantly reposition them to avoid that. Once the tank is down, that's the end of this mission. The Germans run off and a bit of Stalingrad has been retaken. We then see a cutscene of our guys executing all of the prisoners, which ends by zooming in ominously on this statue of some children dancing around a crocodile. Then some images flash on the screen. So far, not really sure what to make of that. Maybe that's going to pay off with something later. Mission complete. Next, the flashback intensifies with a flashback within a flashback as we now jump back again to September 1941 before the Stalingrad fiasco. At this time, we are just running away, and you can guess from the mission title of Scorched Earth what we might be doing while we're running away. Here we meet the guy who's interviewing us in real life for the first time, and he suggests that we destroy absolutely everything as we retreat to stop the enemy getting it. Well, that should do the job. To start with, we just have a little firefight on the edge of the map with a few German infantrymen, where it teaches us a new mechanic, a really curious mechanic actually. What you can do with your conscript squads, which we now have control of, is to use their merge ability to increase the troop count of other squads. So essentially, if you have 3 shock troops and 3 conscripts come over, the 3 conscripts will just be upgraded into shock troops immediately and for free. So you can get more of your good troops. As long as their unit is technically still alive, the conscripts will just keep filing into them, and all of the good troops effectively come back to life. So with a bit of micro, you can give your conscripts really good training. You just have to have a good unit to merge them into. Doesn't really make sense, but you know, it's on-the-job training, I suppose. As for holding our line, it proves to be quite easy actually. We annihilated the German units attacking us. They were mostly just sitting out in the open in a field, as you can see, and we're not, so we basically automatically win that. Being in cover reduces the damage you're taking. The next part of the mission requires us to move back a little bit and defend a bunch of trucks. For this, things are pretty easy as well because we're not being attacked by very much. And the trucks are surrounded by buildings. You can garrison your guys inside buildings to essentially just give them some free cover in all directions, although the buildings do have health and can be destroyed. I'm guessing bullets don't really reduce that health very much. So we're fine, we just shoot up the infantry for a while. Then we get started on the scorched earth part of our operation. We need to blow up some stuff. We've got some howitzers wired to blow here on our little capture point. The main problem is that when I saw the detonation button, I was like, ooh, okay, detonate. And I detonated it while the engineers were still there, killing 3 of their 4-man squad. It didn't even destroy the howitzers, so overall, a failed detonation, suffice to say. Luckily, we can just put down some more explosives, and maybe this time I'll deign to move the engineer out of the way first. So we eventually learn the lesson there. We then get a new objective. The engineers can equip some flamethrowers, because after blowing up those howitzers, we need to set fire to everything. That's a real scorched earth. So we move back to the middle of the map from our base and start burning out some buildings. As you can see, we are not clearing out the civilians first. This is high quality scorched earth, and it doesn't even seem to be particularly useful, because burning down these 2 buildings probably won't stop the Germans in any way. I guess they can't go inside them anymore, but there are plenty more buildings they could go inside. Anyway, once they're burned down, we get a new objective to burn some fields. Someone over the radio mentioned that the fields have already been doused with fuel, so we just shoot some fire in. It kills quite a lot of our own troops, but I think that's part of the meme at this point, so we're just going to go with that. Our commanding officer is certainly up for it. We burn the fields for a while, and then we move into a final segment where we have to defend a train that's being loaded up with stuff. At the top you can see we actually have a time limit to prepare some defences ready to receive an attack, and our engineers can be used to put down mines. I discovered this a bit too late. The time limit's already ticking away, and I eventually realised we're supposed to be mining these roads to stop vehicles. So I didn't do very well. I didn't put down very many mines either. You can put down a lot more than I did. It uses up your munitions resource, which is the red one towards the bottom there that's currently raising. Also discovered late in the game you can upgrade this building to keep your troops alive with an infirmary. That might have been useful earlier. Not that we've really lost many troops so far in this mission, we've mainly just been killing our own civilians. So eventually the Germans start attacking. So far, nothing really happening. They just came up with some infantry, so I thought, well, I'll sneak back out during the attack with the engineers and put more mines down, because I was conscious of the fact I hadn't really put many out. So we cheekily throw a few more down, and here comes a half-track right into our minefield, and it appears to work. The first mine it hit caused it to go out of control and hit a second mine though. I think it would be more efficient to space the mines out quite a lot, so if they do just spiral out of control and drive off somewhere, they don't trigger all of your mines at once. But it seems to be working out so far anyway. There goes an armoured car, and now we're going to use the conscripts merging magic again to bring ourselves back up to strength. We can keep respawning conscript units, moving them up, and having them join the frontline engineering crews, which we need direly right here, where I've got one guy somehow alive out in front of the lines putting down more mines. Some conscripts come over, very quickly learn engineering, and now we have 4 engineers, so this is pretty handy. The conscripts can just run back towards our little base building there, and then be respawned. So we're fine. I do have an issue with the enemy throwing grenades at me, as we can see there. This position kept dying, and this was the first time when I realised why. Basically every time I moved the camera away, somebody was throwing a grenade into that sandbag nest and killing everybody. So you do need to pay more attention than I'm paying. I'm guessing this isn't helping. I decided to watch as my flamethrowers destroyed some infantry. Not very well actually, the flamethrowers don't have any range, but the idea was there. More stuff's trying to drive in and getting blown up by the mines. I was trying to put down more mines kind of behind our lines so that the engineers wouldn't get killed, but that if the front line dies and the enemy drive past, we've still got mines right in front of the position we're supposed to be defending as a sort of last ditch attempt to stop them just driving in and killing everything. The efforts of the suicide engineers from earlier though are still paying dividends, as all the mines that are just under the enemy's infantry are killing the enemy vehicles as they come in to support. Here though is a situation where we're out of mines on the right. The enemy can just drive right up to us and shoot us in the face with machine guns on that half track. We also got grenaded at the same time and lost half of that position. But they then drove forwards for some reason into my backup line of mines and killed themselves. If they hadn't done that, we might have been in trouble. They could have just sat there spinning around, heavy machine gunning us in as much as they liked, really. Now this just goes on for some set amount of time. Eventually it tells us to leave, and just in time really, because I'd already fallen back to just about the last possible position I could hold without failing the objective. Now we can get out of there as more and more enemy stuff, including tanks, starts to show up. Well, we can get out of there if I remember to give the orders. This squad here is getting shot by the tanks until I remember to tell them to leave. Luckily it doesn't matter because the mission just ends, so all of your stuff is going to be destroyed anyway, because we decide to blow the bridge before the troops are finished crossing. Looks like the player character managed to get across, so that's something, and I suppose that's all we need. He doesn't seem too happy with that arrangement, but our commanding officer loves it, of course. We'll leave those guys to do whatever they like on the German side of the river. The enemy advance has been stalled. We see some more suspicious flashing images of some summary executions by the looks of things. Another mission is complete. Still, turns out the German advance wasn't halted, so we move on to the next mission at Mtensk, where apparently we're going to be asked to do the impossible, so that sounds like it's going to be a good mission. We shall take a look at how it goes in the next part. I think there are 14 missions in the game, so I don't know how many missions I'll get through per part. I'm guessing these earlier ones might be shorter missions. I imagine they'll become more complicated as we go on, which probably would be a good thing, because so far it's kind of just like fight in a straight line and just do what the game tells you to do. It was at this point, by the way, that I remembered I'd actually played this game before on a free weekend or something ages ago, because I remembered seeing this cutscene with the 3 little tooth-like lines on it, so I clearly got to here before, although I didn't remember the previous 2 missions, so maybe I wasn't paying attention. Well, I suppose if I only played this far in the game, I probably wasn't paying very much attention at all. Anyway, we will rejoin this mission as we get overwhelmed by some more Germans, a repeating theme so far, at the start of the next part, and I'm sure I'll find something else to rant about, and maybe some things to praise as well. That could be nice. I just really want to zoom the camera out, although it did actually occur to me that not being able to zoom the camera out could be a genius game design decision to represent the fact that if you're supposed to only be a lieutenant who's on the front line, in theory, in the fighting, you can't really tell what's going on all around you, and you can only pay attention to one spot at a time. Is it that? Or do they not want to increase the system requirements for rendering a larger area? Well, I suppose we'll find out one day.